Just because you clean up your diet doesn't mean you're going to get the results that you want. They're cutting out their sugar. Maybe they're swapping out their chocolate chips for cucumbers as a snack, cooking 90% of their meals at home. Jeans are still tight. Energy is not there. Experiencing some bloating. Scale isn't budging, even though you're eating a really clean diet. Our clients can still get results and have dessert. They can still go to social gatherings. They can still travel and go on vacation. There's a lot of freedom that comes with it once you understand what's happening. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast, where we help you understand this new body of yours. Maybe you've started to experience some hormonal symptoms. Maybe you're post-menopause, but we know now that your body is inherently different now that you're experiencing some of these changes. And we know those old fat loss strategies just really aren't cutting it anymore. So it is time to learn how to work with this new body instead of against it, so you can open up those fat burning pathways, have that energy again, and feel confident. Today, I want to tackle 8 reasons why eating clean is not resulting in weight loss. And of course, what to do, because this is a conversation we are having so much with women, because we see it. They're doing all the right things, right? They're cutting out their sugar. Maybe they're swapping out their chocolate chips for cucumbers as a snack, right? Cooking 90% of their meals at home. Jeans are still tight. Energy is not there. Experiencing some bloating. Scale isn't budging. And it's really frustrating because this is something that we've talked about a lot on our consultation calls. Like, this is a very, very common theme. So I figured this is something a lot of people are struggling with. I should probably talk about it on the podcast. And so I think this is a good opportunity to talk about one of my clients. We're going to call her Mindy. And Mindy is someone who was doing all the right things. You know, when she came in, she had already done a lot. Like, she had completely overhauled her diet. We're talking, she took out all processed sugar. She was not ordering takeout. She was cooking every single meal at home. There was no packaged foods, eating organic, like literally all the right things, and nothing was happening. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, where they feel like they're putting in all this effort and making all these changes, but nothing's really budging for them, right? And so when we are looking at the big reasons as to why it's not working, there's typically 8. And so the first one is calorie consistency or lack of it. Because, you know, for example, when we did her food audit and we started tracking her food, even though she was very resistant to it because she didn't want to do it, it was incredibly eye-opening to her and she was shocked. So even though she was eating all these healthy foods, one day she would eat like 1,200 calories, the next would be like 2,100. And this is because like one day she would have lots of leafy greens, a very nice big salad, snacking on cucumber and having like plain Greek yogurt. Very, good foods, like good healthy foods, lots of nutrients, fantastic, but very low calorie and high volume. Then the next day, there was more avocado, there was more nuts, there were more seeds, there was cooking with olive oil, and her calorie intake was much higher. And so we have to remember that if we have to pay attention to how many calories are still in food, even though we're focusing on food quality. And this is because the up and down, even if the food is clean, that's a massive stress on your body. And we know that if your body is stressed because it doesn't know what to anticipate, right? Like, think about if you are in a relationship where you're not really sure how the person's always going to react. You don't know if you tell them something, if it's going to be well accepted, or if they're going to freak out. If they're in a bad mood, if you have to be cautious, you're just constantly walking on eggshells. That's how your body is when it doesn't know what to anticipate in terms of food intake. Whereas if you're in a relationship where you can tell them anything and you're going to be good, right? You can share and they're never going to lash out. No matter what happened in their day, they're not going to take it out on you. And that's a much easier relationship to be in. You can relax, you feel safe. It's the same thing with our bodies. And so when we have this inconsistency in calorie intake, what happens is that cortisol, that stress hormone, does go up. And we know when that stress hormone goes up and it stays elevated, we are going to see that your hormone production decreases. Your blood sugars are going to get worse, even though you're eating a really clean diet. We're going to see thyroid function slow down. So your body is worse at taking food and using it as fuel, and instead stores it as fat. It's not as good at burning calories. So now you're going to be very tired. And if your body's not good at burning calories, weight gain, very easy. Weight loss, very challenging. We see there's going to be more inflammation, which blocks your fat burning pathway. We're going to see that you're going to have sluggish detoxification. We're going to see that you're going to struggle to put on muscle mass, or you might even lose muscle mass. And so when we're looking at all of these things, that massive stress ultimately puts your body in a blocked fat burning state, an overstimulated growth and storage state, and your body is told, we have enough, let's store, because it's in this stress state. Cortisol is going to do that to all the systems in our body. And now your body, regardless how clean you're eating or how little you're eating, it's constantly told, we have enough, let's store. That's obviously a problem because we don't want it to store. We want it to burn, right? And so caloric inconsistency is a really big one. And so this is where you want to typically eat within like 150, 200 calorie window at the most. We don't want to be, 1,400 one day, 1,800 the next, 16, then, 2,000. Like we don't want to have this up and down, because that is a stress on our body. So that's one of the big ones is caloric inconsistency when we're eating clean. Especially if you're someone who likes, cream sauces and dairy, nuts, seeds, very easy to have higher calorie days and then accidentally eat a lot lower calorie the next. The next one is carbohydrates. And so most women are typically not eating enough when we come into this program. When they're coaching with us, even when we're on consultation calls, this is one of the first things that we typically see is that women are unconsciously avoiding carbs because that's what they've been told their entire life, that carbs are bad. It's going to make you gain weight, and it's not, right? And so, we're nervous to have fruit. We're nervous to have potatoes, right? We're nervous to have oats and grains when we shouldn't, because when we don't have enough carbohydrates, we see that our thyroid starts to slow down because carbohydrates help support your thyroid. Your thyroid controls your metabolism, how many calories your body burns at rest, and if your body is going to use food for fuel or take food and store it as fat. So we need to make sure we're supporting our thyroid. Carbohydrates are a big part of that. Supporting our muscle mass. Carbohydrates are a part of that. Supporting your mood. Carbohydrates are packed with serotonin, which are your happy hormone. Very important. And we know with carbohydrates too, that's where we get our fiber from. And fiber is important for supporting our gut, right? We know that gut health typically takes a hit perimenopause and menopause when estrogen starts to go down. And so we want to make sure that we're supporting it with enough fiber. Fiber comes from carbohydrates. Carbs are your body's preferred fuel source. You will have so much more energy if you're eating enough carbohydrates. It's going to help regulate your cortisol and your thyroid. So very good for supporting your cortisol. Remember, if we can bring cortisol down, hormones are happier. Blood sugar is more stable. People are like, what? But carbs are going to increase my blood sugar. No. We've helped so many women improve their A1C, their fasting glucose by incorporating carbohydrates. Because what happens is if we are in this stress state from under eating, inconsistent calorie intake, the go, not sleeping enough, doing tons of exercise, all the things of regular stress, right? The news and scrolling and relationships and deadlines and finances and politics and all the things. That's a lot of stress on our body. And so what happens is if we don't have enough carbohydrates to bring that cortisol down, cortisol goes, hey, we're not getting enough energy from food. We're not getting enough carbohydrates. Therefore, we need to dump sugar into our bloodstream. So it tells your liver, hey, dump sugar into your bloodstream. And so it does this. Blood sugar goes up, even though you're not eating carbs. And you might not even be eating. You could be fasting. This is what happens. And then blood sugar goes up, insulin goes up. That's going to push you into your storage state. And if this cycle keeps happening, you become insulin resistant from stress, not carbs. We see this all the time. And so this is where we need to make sure we're increasing carbohydrates slowly, making sure we're having them at every meal and, choosing ones that have higher fiber, that are more nutrient dense. And we know also that the fiber that comes from carbohydrates helps support our cholesterol levels, helps keep us full, helps slow digestion, which will also support blood sugar as well. And for most women in perimenopause, this is just like general guidelines-ish. Most women do well with like 40 to 50, even 60% of their caloric intake coming from carbohydrates, especially if you're active or stressed. The more active or stressed you are and the lack of sleep that you're getting, typically you need more carbohydrates. There's always going to be caveats to this, but this is, from the women that we work with, this is typically what we're seeing on average. Number 3. So we talked about inconsistent calorie intake and not having enough carbohydrates. The third one is available energy and digestion. So you can be eating so clean, right? The high fiber, the raw veggies, cruciferous everything, the broccoli, right? That your gut can become overwhelmed, especially if you go from not having a ton of fruits and veggies in your diet to having a lot. It takes a lot of energy to digest real food, like a lot of real food. So I was actually helping a friend with this recently, and she has been like changing up her diet, sharing her food logs with me. And she was like, oh man, she texted me in a panic the one morning. She's like, I am so bloated. I know I need to eat enough calories, but I can't. I'm so bloated. And I'm like, hey, send me your food logs for like the last few days and send me what your total calories, carbs, fat, protein, and fiber are. I found the answer right away. On average, she was eating 10 to like 14 grams of fiber. The day before, she ate like 26, I think it was. 26, 23, somewhere in there. That's a big jump. Typically for fiber, we like to stay in a 5-gram range and increase by like 2 to 3 grams per week because it is harder to break down. And so if you jump up your fiber very quickly, your gut doesn't even know what to do with that. Digestion slows down. You get constipated. You get bloated. Water gets pulled into your gut way more than usual. And so what you see is this bloating, and it's very uncomfortable. If this is happening all the time where we're swinging back and forth between high fiber, low fiber, and our gut's not used to that, what happens is our gut lining gets very inflamed. And when our gut lining gets inflamed, we know that's going to cause more stress on our liver because more food is passing through the intestines and making its way to the liver when it's not supposed to. Going to cause a greater load on our liver. Liver has to work harder. We see more inflammation there as well. Toxins get stored in fat cells. If we're not breaking them down, it changes the structure of those fat cells, making them even harder to break down. But also those emit more inflammation as well. And inflammation blocks fat burning. So what we want to make sure is making sure your gut is not inflamed, because that's going to cause a lot more stress in our system. It's going to drive cortisol up and lead to all the things we talked about that are going to block fat burning and overstimulate your growth and storage pathway. So sometimes your body needs some easier to digest meals and some gut healing. So not always just more raw greens. Like we've had clients that we've had to swap from oatmeal to cream of rice, from brown white rice to white rice, because their body needs time to heal. And we need to increase fiber strategically and doing it slowly. And so this is where a lot of people can go wrong, where they start eating healthier and they feel way worse. This is usually a very big part of the reason why. The next one is your protein intake. Of course, we're going to talk about protein. So clean eating for a lot of people typically means that it is low protein, because clean meals are filling, but they're not always complete. A lot of us do not have enough protein in our diet to begin with. And then when we start eating quote unquote clean, we start seeing that we are, not prioritizing protein or getting the right amount that we actually need. And protein's critical when we're over 40 big time, because it controls our blood sugar. We know if blood sugar is erratic, it pushes us into that storage pathway. We don't want that. It tells our body we have enough, let's store. We don't want that signal. We want our body to go, hey, let's burn what we got, right? So we know that protein is going to help support that. It helps build and preserve muscle mass. The more muscle we have, the more energy we're going to have, the more insulin sensitive we're going to be, and the more calories your body burns at rest. If your body burns more calories at rest, a lot easier to lose fat than gain weight, right? We know that during digestion, protein is harder to break down. You'll burn more calories during digestion, which is awesome. So you could have the same amount of calories in a day, but just by increasing your protein intake, you'll burn more because of the digestive effect. We know protein supports our detox. If you don't have enough amino acids, that is what protein is made up of. We know you can't actually get through all the detox stages, which increases inflammation, gets stored into, and toxin accumulation that gets stored into fat cells, making them harder to break down. And we also know that having enough protein helps support your skin, helps support hair growth, your blood, your neurotransmitters everywhere. We need protein. So typically we're aiming for like 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. I usually max women out around 150 grams per day, just because I find above that people start relying on the protein powders, the protein bars, the protein pancakes, the keto wraps, the low carb breads, the high protein whatevers. Those are packed with a lot of artificial like sweeteners, fake fibers, sugar alcohols, and that can actually cause a lot more inflammation, especially if a lot of us are already struggling with that. This is something that we did when we were doing a challenge with our clients, is we actually told them to cut out protein bars, protein powders, those kinds of things for 4 weeks. And people were so impressed with how well their bloating improved. They weren't feeling as inflamed. It was wonderful. And so that's where you got to like make sure you have enough, but we want most of it to come from whole foods. We don't want to be relying on those artificial options, the ultra processed options. Then we also have to address how and when you eat. So it's not just what you eat, it's how you eat and when you eat. And so we want to look at meal timing, your food order of eating, and pairing, because all that's going to matter a lot. So we want to make sure that we are pairing carbs with protein or fat, always. So if I'm going to have some fruit, I'm typically going to have some nuts beforehand or have it with some peanut butter. Might have a piece of cheese beforehand. You know, I'm always having carbs, never on its own. If I want a donut, I'm going to have a donut after a meal because that's going to slow down the digestion. Carbs on their own will typically digest very quickly, spike your blood sugars, cause insulin to go up, push you into that storage pathway. If we are eating something before we have our carb, blood sugar will rise minimally and then maintain and then slowly come down. That's what you want. So very easy way to adjust. You just ask yourself, how can I add a fat or a protein or a veggie to my carbohydrate? Very simple. The next one is your order of eating. So you want to make sure that you are eating some protein and veggies first before dipping into your carbs. This is what we just talked about. So let's say you're having a casserole. Delicious. You're not going to pick out the meat first, right? Maybe have a side salad first. Maybe have some veggies and dip. Maybe you're having a piece of cheese and, I don't know, hard-boiled egg. Maybe you're having a little bit of protein first, whatever that looks like. So you're always having some veggies or protein first before dipping into your carbs to help support that blood sugar control. The next one is eating every 4 to 5 hours a balanced meal. So when we're looking at this, a lot of people who eat clean are grazers. They don't eat very much, but they're just kind of nibbling all day. And when we see this is your blood sugar will just stay elevated all day and we never get out of that storage state. So it's important to make sure you're having a balanced meal every 4 to 5 hours. You can have a small snack in between, but make sure it's a small snack and you're giving yourself some time in between. So maybe this is, again, fruit and a piece of cheese. Maybe it's a little bit of nuts and whatever, an apple, whatever it might be. Then also we like to encourage eating within 90 minutes of waking. So this is because the majority of women that we work with, that we talk to, you're living higher stress lifestyles than you realize. And the way that I know is from, how your body is responding to things, but also like what you've experienced in your past. We're always asking these kinds of questions. Like there is so much that you don't realize that you're stressed out with. And so cortisol is going to be highest in the morning, that stress hormone. If we don't eat, it continues to go up and dump sugar into our bloodstream. And so what happens is when you eat, it brings cortisol down. That's good. That way we have nice, healthy hormone levels, we're more stable mood, more stable blood sugar. Because otherwise you're just drinking coffee in the morning. That can spike your cortisol even more, increase your blood sugar even more. And so you're on this crazy blood sugar roller coaster from the moment you wake up. And the solution is just to eat some breakfast. Super easy. Make sure it's higher in protein. Get some carbs in there to support you with some energy throughout the day, and you're good to go. And so then that's like, it's not just what you eat, it's how and when you eat too. Like that makes a big difference. The meal timing thing is something we work on a lot with clients where you don't have to change your food options that much. It's just the timing, and that can make a really big difference, especially for blood sugar control. The next reason that clean eating isn't resulting in anything is that you are stressed. You are so stressed. Cortisol blocks fat burning. And if you're in the presence of cortisol and elevated blood sugar at the same time, your body cannot release fat. It just stores it right away. And stress is not just, raised by over exercising like a lot of people talk about, right? It's from everything in life, like skipping meals, overscheduling, not having boundaries, not sleeping, emotional strain, right? Like you've got grief and you've got trauma and you've got anxiety. You're working through your lunch breaks. You're drinking coffee on an empty stomach. You're still drinking alcohol, like lots of it, right? You're in the constant go mode. You're dealing with deadlines and sick parents, taking care of everyone else. And then someone asks you what's for dinner and you want to smother them with a pillow, right? Like it's a lot, and we can't out eat our way healthily out of chronic stress. Like We have a client right now that she's on a CGM, like a constant glucose monitor, like it gives us her blood sugar all day. And food doesn't affect it as much as if she has a poor night's sleep, that's causing her blood sugar to be more erratic the next day. And stress. And we know if blood sugar is not in control, it keeps you in that storage state. And so this is where understanding the poor sleep and the high stress paired with low carb makes the sleep and stress worse, making the blood sugar worse. And so this is where understanding that you can eat great. You can eat amazing. But if your stress is not under control, you are always going to struggle to lose weight. And this is not like, getting rid of stress in your life necessarily, because we can't. That's life, right? It's learning to adjust and add in things in your lifestyle to help support the stress. So for me, this is daily time in my Bible. This is praying. This is spending time in devotionals. This is, before I'm done work, before I leave my office, I'm now doing feet up on the wall and doing slow, deep breathing for 3 minutes. And my Aura Ring shows me how much it brings my stress down. It is incredible how just 3 minutes can help support us. But we're like thinking it has to be so much more complicated than that when it's literally 3 minutes. Like your health is worth 3 minutes. Wanting to lose weight, you want to do all these other crazy things, but you can't take 3 minutes. Like those are the things that actually move the needle so much. Going to bed a little bit earlier, not scrolling before bed. These are all things that help lower your stress so much. And we see this in women all the time. Like it isn't a non-negotiable, especially once they're going into a fat loss phase. There has to be some stress management techniques in place because cutting your calories is a stress on your body. And so we need to make sure that we are buffering that because stress increases inflammation, which blocks fat burning. And then no matter how little you eat, it doesn't matter. Your body is constantly being told we have enough, let's store. And then also we have to look at our activity choices, right? Like you can be eating super clean, like I mentioned, but if you're still doing hours of cardio and HIIT, your body can actually fight you. And so this is understanding something called allostatic load. It is like your stress bucket. You have all this water in a bucket, that's your stress. There is an infinite, there's only so much that you can put in that bucket before it overflows, right? Like it's not this infinite thing, this container, right? And the thing is that your bucket used to be bigger. Once your hormones start to decline, that bucket gets smaller. And so you feel like you haven't changed anything and now you're gaining weight, but it's because there's too much stress in your system. Your bucket's overflowing because it's not what's going into the bucket that's changed. It's the actual size of the bucket that's changed. And so now you have to change what you're doing on the outside to match the capacity of the inside. But so many of us don't want to do that because we're like, well, I used to be able to do it. And it's frustrating because you know what you used to be capable of and you feel like you should be able to be capable of it now, but you're a different person. Who you are and how your body functions is different now. And so when we're looking at this, we have to realize that the HIIT and the cardio, those things are a lot. And so then you have this tipping point where it's not a good stress on your body anymore. It's a negative stress that causes more inflammation and blocks fat burning. And this is where having to pull back can be really helpful. I had to pull back from exercise for 7 weeks and only focus on stretching and walking, increasing my calories to bring that inflammation down. And only then was I able to release some fat. And we see this in women all of the time that you think because you could before, you can do it now, but it's not the same, right? Like now I don't dare play volleyball without, actually warming up because then I won't be able to move for the next month. And I'm going to mess up my neck. I'm going to mess up my shoulder. Risk of injury is high. I don't want that, right? Back when I was in high school and in university, you would just get on the court and start playing. It was crazy. But I'm not going to do that now because my body can't tolerate it. It's different. And so we need to learn to make adjustments that way as well. So we need to be mindful of that. And we also need to make sure we're building muscle mass. Muscle mass is so incredibly important and so hard to build in this time in our life. Doesn't mean it's impossible. We see it all the time, but it's not going to happen on accident. You have to be intentional with your training. You have to get stronger. You have to focus on lifting heavier week to week. You have to focus on following a program for 4 to 6 weeks before it changes. So every Monday is going to look the same. Wednesday will look different from Monday, but every Wednesday is the same. Every Friday is the same. And every week when you're doing those workouts, you're challenging yourself to lift heavier. You shouldn't be able to lift 2 more reps above that rep range if you can, you're never getting a big enough muscle building signal sent to your body, and you need a much bigger one. Because now that estrogen has declined and we're dealing with high cortisol and typically testosterone is low, it is really hard because our muscle breakdown signal gets louder and our muscle building signal gets smaller. And so we need to make sure that we are sending the right signal and being intentional. But a lot of people don't understand this. And having enough muscle mass is crucial, not just for, losing weight and looking fit, but for improving your blood sugar control, for making your body better at burning calories, to help support your hormones, but also all-cause mortality. The more muscle mass you have, lower the risk of death that you have. There's fewer surgical complications, shorter hospital stays. All of those things that have to do with quality of life and who we want to be when we're 80 have to do with muscle mass. And so you can do all the right things, but this part is really big of it, right? It's a big, big part of this. We can't just say, oh, well, I'm eating healthy. We have to understand that there's a lot more components here. And the last one, of course, is hormones. It's a missing piece for a lot of women. If you're not taking your hormonal health into account, just because you clean up your diet doesn't mean you're going to get the results that you want, because you could have low estrogen, which results in poor blood sugar control and mood regulation. You could have low progesterone compared to estrogen. So now you have, estrogen dominant type effects. And now we're seeing more belly fat accumulation, poor sleep, more anxiety, more bloating, more inflammation, low thyroid. That's going to slow down your metabolism. It's going to make your body worse at burning calories and not so good at taking food and turning it into fuel. And instead takes food and turns it into fat. You can have high androgens. This goes hand in hand with poor blood sugar control. We see acne, we see belly fat, imbalanced cortisol, more cravings, more belly fat, worse energy, muscle loss, even more hormonal support. So we're seeing that it's more complicated than just calories in, calories out, but it's also just not the kind of food you eat. Does that play an important role? Absolutely. Obviously, if you eat 1,500 calories of McDonald's versus 1,500 calories of greens and veggies and lean protein, different response in the body, right? The bloating, the inflammation, the salt content, the energy that you'll have from those foods, right? The blood sugar crash and tired later. It does matter, but it's one piece. So if you're not addressing the internal stuff and understanding what is truly blocking my fat burning pathway, what is truly causing my body to stay in this storage state, you're going to struggle. Just because you're eating more greens doesn't mean you're going to get results. Can it help? Yes. But if your stress is out of control, if you're not doing the kind of right workouts, your sleep's not great, you're avoiding carbs, you're not getting enough protein, we're eating too low calorie, or our calories are inconsistent, you're going to struggle. And our metabolism, we need to understand that that's what dictates. Will your body take food and turn it into fuel, or will it take food and turn it into fat? That's the really big question. And now, just changing the type of food you eat won't necessarily change that. And for most people, it doesn't. And so we need to take the time to really understand your body. And if you are feeling bloated, if you are feeling exhausted, if you are stuck, the answer isn't just cutting carbs and eating even cleaner, right? Our clients can still get results and have dessert. They can still go to social gatherings. They can still travel and go on vacation. There's a lot of freedom that comes with it once you understand what's happening. You don't need to be more restricted. You need a smarter and more personalized approach that supports you and what the root causes of your inability to be able to lose weight. Because just because you're cooking most of your food at home does not mean you're going to lose weight. Can it help? Yes. But again, it's just one small piece of the puzzle. And so I do want to let you know about a webinar that we are hosting. It is called Beyond Calories, How Hormones, Detox, and Inflammation Keep You Stuck and How to Break Free. It is going to be the ultimate fat loss masterclass for women over 40 who are doing all the right things but just stuck. And we are going to tackle the biggest factors that we need to address that are preventing women from being able to lose weight. that it's not just calories in, calories out, as I'm sure you've figured that out by now. And when you join, you are also going to receive a 3-day detox meal plan, completely complimentary. And then one person who attends the masterclass is also going to win a free Dutch test, which is a hormonal Dutch test. It's a urine test, 24 hours. It will show us so many things like your cortisol, where your hormones are at, what detox pathways your body is prioritizing, where's your liver at, how's inflammation. It gives us so much information. You're also going to get a metabolic and hormonal symptom assessment. And we're going to give you a roadmap, a written report, and have a phone call with you where you get to, understand the results of each hormone in each section of the test. Suggested personalized plan of action that addresses the root cause that we're seeing. There's going to be nutritional suggestions, lifestyle adjustments, exercise recommendations, supplement recommendations where appropriate. And of course, you have that call if you win that Dutch test. And so if you want to sign up for that, it is in the show notes for you, or you can always message me as well. I hope this was helpful and shed some light on why you feel like you've cleaned things up and it's not working. Make sure to share with your friends who are struggling too. The more women who can understand this stuff are then going to be able to take control over their life. And so you get to help us with our mission of getting good, actionable information into women's hands to change the trajectory of women's health. We love you so much, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.